This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News. I'm Sophie Ikenye. Our top stories. A breakthrough in the treatment of Ebola. The World Health Organization approves the first vaccine, saying it meets standards of quality and safety. As the Peace Forum ends in Paris, is Cameroon's Paul Biya attempting to heal the rift caused by his country's Anglophone crisis. Also in the program, inspired by her daughter's disability, we meet a Nigerian mother who provides free prosthetics to children with amputated limbs.
It makes me feel joyful that other people have the same opportunity I have. A person with a disability doesn't mean a part of you is missing.
And in sports, all eyes on Cameroon 2021 as qualifying for the Africa Cup of Nations begins. We'll bring you all the latest scores and results from today's 11 games. Thanks for joining us on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. The World Health Organization has approved the world's first ever vaccine against Ebola. The vaccine is already being used in the ongoing outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which has so far claimed more than 2,100 lives. It comes as health authorities in the country get ready to roll out a second experimental vaccine as part of a major clinical trial. Our global health correspondent, Tulip Mazumda, reports.
For more than 40 years, Ebola has been one of the world's most deadly and terrifying diseases. Medics have relied on very basic tools like quarantining victims and keeping them well hydrated to help save lives. But today, for the first time, there's an internationally approved vaccine that provides almost 100% protection against Ebola. Developed by the American pharmaceutical company Merck, it has already been given to around 250,000 people in the DRC. Now, though, it can be stockpiled by governments and rolled out to countries that are most at risk of outbreaks.
It's wonderful news. I mean, finally, after 40 years, we've got some tools that can prevent people from becoming infected.
Professor Peter Piot is part of the team that discovered Ebola and investigated the first outbreak back in 1976.
It's really a happy moment for everybody who's been involved in Ebola from the beginning, because we finally have something to offer. And I think now we have to think how we're going to use these vaccines, making sure that people have access to them.
Another major milestone in the fight against Ebola is taking place in the DRC this week. A large-scale trial of a second vaccine manufactured by Johnson & Johnson. 50,000 people from 1 year old will be offered the jab in 2 areas of Goma. They'll need 2 doses 2 months apart. This outbreak has been fueled by conflict and by distrust of health workers. The medical charity MSF has spent weeks carrying out education campaigns ahead of the rollout.
Certainly in an Ebola outbreak, when you introduce a new drug or when you introduce a new vaccine, especially when you talk about something being experimental or new, there is a lot of questions. There can be a lot of confusion or mistrust. That's normal. And one of the things that we've been very clear on from the beginning is that we need to work very closely with the communities that we vaccinate.
As well as the 2 vaccines, 2 experimental treatments are also being used in the DRC, where new cases of Ebola have dropped significantly in recent weeks. The world has never had so many tools with which to fight this virus. It's hoped they will help end this outbreak and prevent future epidemics. Tulip Mazumda, BBC News.
Let's now speak to Dr Michel Yao, the head of Ebola response in the DR Congo. Thanks for taking time to talk to us on Focus on Africa. Just paint us a picture of how significant this approval is.
This is actually a major milestone in the response to Ebola. It gives us actually a mean to prevent Ebola, and also in addition to all the treatment, experimental treatment ongoing that has been shown effective, is really a major asset to prevent and treat Ebola.
You were at the first trial of this vaccine itself. How does it actually work in the body?
Actually, it's a vaccine that has been made from another animal virus called the stomatitis, and it has been modified with a protein of Ebola, and it's actually trigger the immune response that the body can produce to respond to prevent and protect a person that received the vaccines against the virus.
So a lot of people are now questioning and asking, when will this start distribution, and how will it be done?
Okay, it is the first step, the pre-qualification showing that it meets WHO standard quality, safety, and mainly efficacy standards. Now, the next step is the production. And the vaccine that we have was made for the compassionate use. So the licensed vaccine will start, but it will start by mid-2020. So it will take actually some time to have this vaccine available and on the market. And we have to say that the production capacity will increase progressively. So it's a vaccine that may not be at the immediate term available for everybody to purchase. But what WHO is working on is to ensure that we have some stockpile to respond to a future outbreaks.
I'm curious about the hotspots and how much attention you're paying to those regions.
Actually, the good news is that the trend is going down. So we are trying to focus on this hotspot and to ensure that we have a quality intervention. So right now we are having sporadic cases, 1 to 0 or less than 10 cases. So this allows us actually to have a detailed intervention in terms of mapping where the positive case went when it became positive and or symptomatic, and then trying to perform all the interventions, including vaccination, disinfection, as well as close follow-up on the contact, so that any contact becoming symptomatic can be detected, isolated, and given chance to survive with the treatment.
Now, one of the biggest challenges that most of the health workers were facing was the negative perception by the locals with regard to the vaccines. How are you overcoming that hurdle now?
This one is actually addressed by sensitizing the communities and also using health workers within these communities to be part of the vaccination team. So involving the community, putting face that they know in front of them as a vaccinator actually help to overcome. But it's require quite a sensitization, because at the beginning, actually, the Ebola was used by some of the political leaders for political purpose, and this really affect the response. We recall that even some of the vaccination team or Ebola response team were actually attacking. Fortunately, we lost some of them. And with this achievement, we should really recognize how hard it has been, and also the huge job that has been done for us to actually reach this major milestone in the response to Ebola.
All right, Dr. Michel Yao, thank you very much indeed for taking time to talk to us and Focus on Africa. Thank you. Now, Cameroon's President Paul Biya has for the first time spoken publicly about granting special status to the English-speaking regions in the country. The Anglophone separatist rebellion, which started 3 years ago, has killed thousands and displaced more than 500,000 people. He spoke at a peace summit in France. So let's go straight to Paris now, where the BBC's Nicolas Negos has been attending that peace summit. Nicolas, what more do we know about this special status?
Sophie, it is still not clear what this special status might look like and when it's going to be implemented. A government official that I have met earlier today at the Paris Peace Forum told me that the most important for Paul Biya is to succeed to bring back peace in the country. As you know, Paul Biya has been under international pressure. He had national talks last October. He also released his main opponents, including the opposition leader Maurice Kamto. So he already did a huge move in order to bring back peace in the country.
This summit has also seen some significant announcements being made, hasn't it?
Yes, and part of this announcement, you have the fact that French President Emmanuel Macron pledged support to African countries in conflict, including countries like in the Sahel region. He talked with President of Chad Idriss Déby, but also Malian President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta and Niger President Mamadou Issoufou, and assured them that they can count on French help. He also told Félix Tshisekedi, the guest of honor of the Paris Peace Forum, that he is going to do everything that he can to help Tshisekedi to reach his aim, which is to take out 20 million people from DRC out of poverty. So this is a major announcement, especially for DRC, after the fact that Félix Tshisekedi was last month in Belgium.
Nicola, you've been there from the beginning until now the summit has closed. Do you get the feeling that people are satisfied with the outcome of it?
I had different, I talked to different people, and not all of them were satisfied. Especially yesterday, I was telling you that I spent time talking with young people from youth organization, and they were telling me that this is one more forum, this is one more places where people talk and leaders don't listen. But at the same time, it's a big win for Emmanuel Macron, because the French president was able to show one more time the fact that France can have a tight relationship with Africa, can cooperate with Africa just a few days after the Russia-Africa summit in Sochi. And also the presidents of those Sahel region that I was talking to you about were able to discuss and to say that they need more help from the international community in order to fight terrorism.
All right, Nicola Negos, thank you for bringing us up to speed with that summit. Let's now take a quick look at other stories making headlines across Africa. South African Airways says it might never recover if a strike by labor unions goes ahead on Friday. Over 3,000 cabin crew and other workers are striking over plans to cut more than 900 jobs. The airline has not made any profit in 8 years and has been bailed out by the government. Ethiopia has deployed soldiers to subdue clashes in universities across the states of Oromia and Amhara. The violence was sparked by the death of 2 students on Saturday at Woldia University in northern Ethiopia after confrontations between different ethnic groups. At least 12 students were reported to have been injured. To South Africa, where reports of heavy rains, tornadoes and flooding have damaged parts of KwaZulu-Natal, where many live in houses without proper foundations or drainage systems. Well, the BBC's weather presenter Chris Fawkes has been looking at what happened and where the storm is heading next.
South Africa has seen some severe thunderstorms over the last 24 hours, with reports of damaging wind gusts, flash flooding, and these storm clouds also brought a tornado to New Hanover in KwaZulu-Natal across the eastern side of South Africa. Why have the storms been so violent just recently? Well, it's down to the jet stream pattern. At the moment, we've got this upper area of low pressure. It's got cool air at higher elevations, and that encourages big thunderstorms to develop as moist air comes in towards the Earth's surface. It creates these explosive conditions. Now, we've got the same kind of setup for Thursday. So again, we could see some severe thunderstorms with the risk of flash flooding across the eastern side of South Africa, damaging wind gusts and maybe some hail as well. But as that upper area of low pressure starts to lose some of its intensity by Friday, those storms will get less widespread and less severe, and the weather should get back to normal across these eastern areas in time for the weekend.
This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News. Still to come in sports, he's got the hardest punch in the world. Now Cameroon MMA fighter Francis Ngannou recounts his journey from illegal migrant to the top of his sport. I'm Sophie Ikenye, and you're watching Focus on Africa from BBC World News. The top stories on this program. The World Health Organization has approved the world's first ever vaccine against Ebola. The drug has been used since last year as an experimental vaccine in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, as the Peace Forum ends in Paris, Cameroon's Paul Biya has for the first time spoken publicly about granting special status to the English-speaking regions in the country. Now, in Nigeria, there are millions of people with disabilities, but very few get the help they need. And until this year, they could be openly discriminated against. So one mother whose daughter had part of her leg amputated set up a foundation to provide free prosthetics to children under the age of 18. Well, the BBC's Grace Ekpu went to meet her.
Crystal Chigbu's young daughter was born without the long bone below the knee.
The first time someone saw my daughter, the teacher said she couldn't run. A teacher actually told her she couldn't swim. A coach told her, oh, you're not going to be able to swim because you have one leg. I work with children that have been amputated, either as a result of congenital issues or as a result of trauma.
Her solution was to set up a foundation to provide free limbs for children in Nigeria, including her daughter, Beulah.
When I gave birth to my daughter, she had a congenital deformity of her limb. And then we were told when she was 6 days that we had to amputate the limb. I saw that it was beyond, all the pain and the issues that I had. Every time I see her smile, and now being able to make another child smile like she does really gives me joy. So I think that's what really excites me.
The limbs cost up to $5,000 each. The foundation, which is dependent on donations, has given 120 limbs to children and has worked directly with 182 families, helping hundreds of other people.
I wanted to force my hands open. Try to do this.
Over 19 million Nigerians live with disabilities, according to the government. In January 2019, Nigeria passed a new law banning discrimination against disabled people after years of advocacy from rights groups. The law prescribes fines and prison sentences for anyone discriminating against disabled people and sets up a 5-year transitional period for public buildings and structures to become accessible for all.
That excites me. It really excites me. So coming from nobody talking about disability to it being a bill and now a law and a lot more people, thinking differently about it, I think that's a lot of impact for us.
Beulah is now 10 and has learned to swim, dance ballet, and do all the things that other children do.
It makes me feel joyful that other people have the same opportunity I have. A person with a disability doesn't mean a part of you is missing. It just means one part of your body is missing, and you can make the most of it. For all the boys and girls out there, I feel like we're perfect the way we are, and God made us for a purpose.
Quite moving there. You're watching BBC Focus on Africa. Let's find out what's happening in the world of sport, Peter.
Many thanks, Sophie. Now, from today, all eyes are on Cameroon 2021. For 48 of Africa's biggest footballing nations, it's the start of the road to what they hope will be African Cup of Nations glory. Only 24 teams will qualify for the tournament, and there are some really big fixtures on this first day of qualifying. Some games are already over. The Central African Republic and Malawi began their campaigns with wins over Burundi and South Sudan. Another 4 games kick off in just over an hour. Those scores that you see there are the latest ones. There are 7 more games on Thursday. Holders Algeria host 2012 winners Zambia. South Africa's Bafana Bafana travel to Accra to play Ghana, and Egypt host Kenya, amongst other games. Now, just one other football story away from the qualifiers. An appeals court in Sweden has found former Nigeria international Dixon Etuhu guilty of attempting to fix a match in the country's top division. This verdict overturns another by a lower court. The case centered on allegations that the 37-year-old Etuhu, who has played for Manchester City, Norwich, Sunderland, Fulham and Blackburn, as well as Swedish club AIK, conspired together with another man to offer a former teammate money to fix a game between AIK and IFK Gothenburg in spring 2017. Etuhu has said he will appeal. Now, Bridget Kosgei's marathon achievements have been recognized with a nomination for the Female World Athlete of the Year award. She broke the long-standing world record last month and appears on a 5-woman shortlist along with the likes of Shelley Ann Fraser-Price, who won the World 100 meters in a world-leading time at this year's World Championships. The men's shortlist, which was unveiled on Sunday, includes Kenya's Eliud Kipchoge, who became the first athlete to run a marathon in under 2 hours in an unofficial event in Vienna just last month. And now let's meet Cameroon's Francis Ngannou, who survived the migrant trail across the Sahara Desert, crossing the Mediterranean by boat and living on the streets of Paris to become the #2 ranked UFC heavyweight fighter in the world. He recently returned to Cameroon and is training young kids. He tells the BBC his story.
I went from the very bottom to the top, from nobody to somebody. I will be remembered as some physical monster, like a knockout artist. That's a part of my legacy. It was hair on her. It's a road that at some point you can die of the need of water. The worst thing is to cross the sea. It was just a huge risk as you don't care in your life anymore. At last, I had that opportunity that I'd been seeking for. I had the opportunity to express myself, to do something on my own and to do it well. We are empowering them through the sport to understand that it's possible to believe in themselves. When I look at them, I see myself in their eyes. Doesn't matter what is their dream. You are no longer poor when you believe in yourself. When you believe in yourself, that's where you become a rich man in your life.
He actually has the hardest ever recorded punch in the world. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I thought I had the hardest one, but hey.
I didn't see that coming, Peter. No, come on, Peter. Thank you for the sport anyway, thank you. Now, something a little bit light to end the show, the Wildlife Comedy Awards. The winning photo was taken by Sarah Skinner in Botswana and shows this lion cub playing. We'll leave you with these images that made the shortlist.